Welcome to the Avanti Woman podcast. With each episode, each conversation, we aim to empower, connect, and build women to move forward, feel confident, and thrive in healthcare, finance, entrepreneurship, and philanthropy. We're glad you're here.
Hello, ladies and everyone tuning in. I'm Nairi, and welcome to the Avanti Woman podcast. Today's episode is the last in a three-part series, and now what? Titled, COVID and All, Moms Juggle It All. In the last two segments, we discussed balance, what it is, can we always keep it and maintain it, or is it a myth? And burnout, what it is, and the different stages of burnout and how it can be prevented. I'm excited about today's discussion, for I am amongst three phenomenal, do-it-all, strong women. These women are not only career women juggling multiple companies, but they're also moms, wives, cooks, therapists, you name it, keeping it together for themselves and everyone else amidst a crazy world that has gone through so much change in the past 2 years and continues on to go through even more change. Ladies, welcome. We have our own Sara Citak from the Avanti Woman, the powerful Anita Gastelum, and a force of nature, Rachel LaForce. So please share a little about yourselves, what you do, your family, your kids, no names. And I'd like to open the floor to you, ladies, hearing you have a conversation amongst yourself on how you did it, how you kept it all together in the last 2 years, and how you are still keeping it together as more changes are coming our way.
Well,
go ahead.
Let's start off. I mean, I think everybody has heard me on the podcast before. I'm Sara. Where Nighty and I have this brainchild of the Avanti Woman. Many of us, Anita and Rachel, we've discussed every single time while we're taking a deep breath of what the world was like. I've got two young kids, a daughter and a son who are both in elementary school. And I know there were a number of hats that we wore during this period. And I think we're going to kind of discuss that a little bit. Anita and Rachel, why don't you guys introduce yourselves, and we'll talk about all the different hats that we wore. So I'll hand it off, Anita.
Sure.
Rachel.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm so excited. Congratulations for stepping out of your comfort zone and doing it. I love the name. I am all about moving forward, stepping forward and into your greatness. So thank you for having me. I'm a mom to three kids. I have a boy-girl twin and a 10-year-old son, and so extremely busy. My husband helps a lot. I cannot complain. He does step up to the plate a lot. But as you know, as moms, it's all the invisible stuff that you do that no one really, takes into account when you're a mom of three kids. And my twins are going into high school next year. So that's a new milestone for them. And I'm happy to see them grow. And with that growth comes new, different problems, right? Because when the kids are
Challenges.
little, it's one problem. And then when they get into that age, it's another problem. So we're
opportunities for growth.
Opportunities for more gray hair and stress. Yes, that is right. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Rachel?
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm
Hi.
Rachel LaForce. Thank you for having me. I am a comedian. I am an entrepreneur. I am a producer. I'm a wife. And through the pandemic, I was learning how to become a mom. So my son is 9 months old. And, so it's the sage of it takes a village. Well, what happens when we're all kind of separated into our own villages? There's a lot of developmental things that I just was like, well, we all haven't lost it today, so I guess we're doing all right, So there was that was kind of the learning curve for me, which was we'll just figure it out. And for me, a lot of it was instinctual, and in many ways it was a blessing to be at home. My husband and I own a podcast production company, so we were at home together, but then it's literally just the round robin of like, somebody pick up the baby, somebody grab a client phone call, somebody put the baby down, somebody grab so I just think it's so charming that you said, how are we all keeping it together? And I wanted to go, oh, I'm sorry. There are people that are doing that because, I think for me, it's just been a lesson in deepening my endurance and ability to expand and figure out where my energy leaks are. So I've just really, hashtag the boundaries of it all. And not so much with other people, but really with myself, where it was like, okay, girl, if we're going to get these things done, we need
Rachel,
to really take stock.
Something you said just made me trigger, those days when we were all at home and doing everything. I remembered, like, at the end of the day, it was like, okay, we got through today. We survived today. And how many roles, I mean, you named off some, Rachel, but Anita joined in. So it was
my roles. Let me just tell you, the most important role as a mom is feeding children.
Yes.
Cafeteria lady.
Yes. My husband and I used to say the kitchen is closed, and then it would open again. We'd be like, okay, the kitchen is closed. No, for real, the kitchen is closed. And then it would open again. And the reason is because when all of our kids, I know, Rachel, you have a small baby, so you didn't go through this phase of it. Right. But when you do online learning, you didn't have to pack a lunch, which was great. And you didn't have to think about a snack. But what you had to think about is they're gonna be hungry and they're gonna want snacks, but they want them for the whole time that they're in online class. So they were getting up and going to the refrigerator, and, they wanted home cooked meals. They were like, a sandwich. I don't want a sandwich. I want to have, pasta bolognese without it. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And he's like,
my daughter's favorite. Can I have veal scallopini? And it's like, I'm in a meeting.
A veal scallopini real quick here between math. And it was funny because one of the teachers used to say to my son, why didn't you eat at lunch? And he's like, oh, because I was playing video games.
Yeah, exactly.
So at lunch, you need to eat your meal and not eat while you're bringing it to class. And so, the cafeteria was constantly open: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, afternoon snacks. And it was a running joke. But at the end of the day, when you total, 5 of us home, 14, 16 months, and all the cooking and cleaning and shopping, the kitchen was never closed. It was never open. And as I say to my husband, I love to eat, but I get allergic to the kitchen.
Right.
So,
right. And my favorite was everyone was having lunch at a different time.
Yes.
Because the younger one's lunch period was at a different time than the older one. And then you had a break in between meetings. So you were going, and then the spouse is like, what am I going to eat? And you're like, oh my gosh. But so let's count them, ladies. So we were housewife, wife, mother, professional in numerous jobs because everyone's multitasking multiple things. We were cafeteria lady without the hairnet. We were psychologist. We were entertainer, so to speak, / cruise director. That didn't go anywhere. What else were we? I think we were, the juggler. We were the psychologist as well, the therapist. What else? That's already 8. I'm sure there's like 5 or 6 more that we can easily name off.
Well, we're hairstylists for sure, because
that's right.
The hairstylist, you still have to comb their hair and make
I gave haircuts too.
Make them somewhat presentable for online school, but that was always a challenge. Those are like the dailies, right? Like
the dailies.
Homework, you had to be a teacher because at the end when online school was over, and if they didn't get the lesson, teachers did a really good job, but still you did need to be reinforced being a teacher. And that's the hardest thing, because you're like, what do you mean you don't understand? What do you mean you don't understand? I'm explaining it to you. I'm not a teacher by trade, thank God, because it is a vocation that you have to have, best practices and little techniques on how you teach kids, because it's not easy trying to teach someone fractions when they don't understand the concept. So I think teacher was a big one for us.
So I'm not a mom. Okay. I'm a single woman. I have a niece and a nephew. That's the closest, I get to being a mom. I love them to death. But honestly, ladies, seeing how you juggled it fascinates me. For me personally, you talk about Zoom, Anita. That was a whole new foreign thing for all of us in the last 2 years. 2020, we had to come and learn a new language. Everything turned to Zoom. And I watched Sara juggle her family, her kids. She has 2 kids. At the time, each one was, they had their own school, different schools, going to different schools, different systems. She had to juggle her own companies, her work, plus, try to be the navigator of her son's classes and scheduling and the systems, and her daughter. And how did you guys do all that stuff? I mean, I was just looking at my own thing as a career, and it was overwhelming. Now you're juggling multiple things. Hats off, honestly.
Thank you. So let's add to the list, technician and technical support. So I think we're at number 12. Let's see how far we're going to go by the end of this discussion.
That's kind of my question, which is, so I know for me, I have to have a sense of center, or I'm of no use to anyone. So that's my question for the both of you as well, which is, you're not only needing to, there's one thing of I feel like often we say that we're mom, but those are 3. And then in your case, there are 2 separate relationships that you have, because each of your kids are different. Their needs are different. The way in which they communicate with you, both verbally and non-verbally, all of those. And then you're adding on a husband and their needs. And then it's co-parenting. That's one relationship. And then, intimacy and romance, that's another relationship. So even though we're saying that there's these different people, right? If we're getting into not to get into the minutia of all of it, but really just to show how layered that is. What are the practices that you guys do so that you don't lose your minds? I guess is also, we know these different roles, but I'm really curious what the daily practice is for you guys to really feel like you're centered and have what you need in order to be of service to your families and your clients and folks like that.
Great point.
Do you want to go first, Anita?
Sure. So I did not find my center. I did not.
I didn't either.
I didn't find it. I'll tell you in the very beginning of the pandemic, I'll tell you that I thought it was a silver lining, because I did not have to drive kids to school.
Right.
I didn't have to make sure that they were dressed in uniform. I didn't have to fight traffic. So all the things that, we're kind of used to as moms, our routine, stopped. And so it kind of gave me some opportunity to breathe and change up that routine, which was very welcoming, because I got a lot of time back on the clock. And then again, new problems arose, like the cafeteria opening for 24 hours. They're always, they've got nowhere to go. There's no sports. There was no social activities, right, for 3 kids who want to go be with their friends, physically, socially be with them. And I remember thinking to myself, I can't take it anymore. I just need a moment to be with my own thoughts, because I didn't know what they were, and to get the kids out of my psychological space and put them somewhere. And so what I found for me was I would walk my dog by myself. Everyone would say, can I come with you? And I was like, no, you cannot come with me. But why can't I come with you? I'm like, because mommy has to go and have a moment. And I really enjoyed what I used to call my walks with Rocco. Rocco's my puppy, and he'll probably bark anytime soon when I call him. But I found walking with my dog was my center, because when I would come home, it's not that it was chaos, it was that it was lively. It was full of life and full of joy and screaming and TV and radio on and multiple and cooking and, the air conditioning on or the fireplace on during the winter. I mean, whatever it was, there was always activity. There was no silence and calmness for me to think. And so I actually had to take a pause and not work. So when you say, what was it? I couldn't juggle it. I couldn't be on a client call and attend to 3 kids and figure out what, our life was going to be. So I would walk Rocco and come back and find a more centered approach. I used to do Bikram yoga, hot yoga, which I loved and found my calmness. That was gone. And I haven't returned. That has not returned into my life. But it was a lot of life, a lot going on in a house full of stuff. And people would say, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. And I'm like, no, I will be first one at school at 5 a.m. What time does school open? 7:01. I will be there at 6:59 to drop off everybody.
That's right.
I'll be happy to make lunch. Here you go. Right?
Here you go. Yeah.
I was the first one. And people would be like, but don't you miss it? I'm like, I love the nesting. I did. But I needed to get back to work because a lot of us have our identity in our work and what we contribute to society and what our talents and our gifts are, right? So I wanted to get back to that as well. So I'm happy that the world, went upside down for a little bit and we're trying to get our bearings now. But I love my clients and I love what I do and I need that creative outlet. So that was good. That was a good pandemic to have. Check.
No, I was very similar, where I was not centered whatsoever. And, there was a point where I decided that I'm not going to try to even achieve being centered because it was impossible at that time. I think we're at 12 roles we came up with so far. Yeah. So it was going to be an impossible thing. So I took it where I was much more methodical, which is my nature anyhow. So this is what I just need to do at this moment and feel good about ticking it off the list. And that feels good. I tick that one off. And then for me, we don't have any pets. Well, we did have a fish that didn't make it through COVID, unfortunately. But for me, it was at the end of the day when everybody was in bed, I would watch my wonderful period pieces stuff on Netflix or whatever, and it was just eye candy for me, and I transported myself to a different time and just watched people live their life at a different time that was all about beautiful things, and that was it. It just gave me some serenity.
That was your escapism.
That was my escapism. That's right. You needed escapism. But I gave up on the whole thing about being centered and balancing it all. It just didn't exist.
Because balance is a myth, right, Sara?
Because that's exactly it. Balance is a myth. And, to that point of the one thing, that we heard, Sarah Rogers, who was a guest on our first podcast, as Naomi said, is you also have to find the one thing that you want to do. And for me, it was just being alone in a room and watching a beautiful period piece, series or movie or whatever it was, but to be just in silence and let someone else entertain me.
Yeah.
How about you, Rachel? I mean, Rachel, you were pregnant during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you
navigating postpartum.
Exactly. So tell us a bit about that.
Oh my goodness.
I think similarly to what Sara and Anita were sharing, which is for me, it was accepting that I'm operating under circumstances that are not ideal, and then accepting that there is no ideal situation. So we live in a society where it's like, if you do this and this and this, then everything's right. I think there is this charge to dismantle that you can have it all. But I think it's same thing with balance. You can have balance if you recognize that most of the time you will be out of balance. And what true balance is, at least for me, is being able to identify when I'm feeling out of balance and what can I do to just be mindful of it. I mean, sometimes it's just simply clocking, hey, I'm not feeling great today. I don't need to do anything about it. I don't need to fix it. but simply knowing that I'm operating from that place. Like a way I talk about it on stage, I'm like, no one would ever want to have to do anything of merit when they're hangry, right?
Right.
Like there's this pass that
That's
we
right.
give to people in society of like, oh, it's okay, they were hangry, Like nobody likes anyone to be rude or mean or anything like that. But if you're hungry, we're like, oh, we get it, we understand. And so there really was this thing where I had to accept, oh, the way in which we're all operating right now is from that short fused space. And if I can acknowledge that for myself, and then I can offer that grace to everyone that I'm, engaging with, especially my husband, who has no place to go either. And we're both very high energy people, high octane, that he doesn't have that outlet either. So when I'm feeling frustrated, when I'm carrying this internal rage of I'm doing everything and it's not enough, or how does everybody not see that I'm doing all of these things, or any of those thoughts that we all have, is
Oh,
I
I
would
bet
just,
Anita had that because I had that. Like, how
yeah,
does not everyone not see this?
yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, when the kitchen's open 24 hours and you're like, do you guys, and so yeah, that was it for me, of just being mindful of there may be days where I can carve out the space to my big one for my creativity is what I call a brain dump. So if at least at some point in the day, all of the new ideas that are percolating or things I want to do or people I want to reach out to, those things, if I can just brain dump, then I'm like, okay, it has a space. And then so I don't have to do anything with it today or even this week, but at least if I can brain dump it, I know it lives somewhere, then I can be fully present and show up as present as possible for the people and things in my life.
Yeah.
So,
okay, here's
similarities.
yeah.
a lot of similarities. So, we had 2020, half of 2021, we're all quarantined. Life was very different. You guys were at home with the kids, work was at home, school was at home. So now things are opening up. A lot of things have opened up. So how do you see, how are you coping with the new changes, and how do you see yourselves changed? How are you doing things differently?
I had to take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like we went from 0 to 100 in a split second. And I personally don't know. I mean, how coping, I don't know that I've even processed it yet, of going from 0 to 100 literally overnight and getting back into some routine. I don't know. Anita, Rachel, have you processed it yet? I mean, going from, a dozen roles and sub roles to a different, I don't know, have you?
Rachel, do you want to take that, or do you want me to start?
I mean, I was just going to share that I allowed the time, and I will also say that I was grateful to have resources as far as like family or financial resources. So this is just something I share as mine. I don't think that this is, possible for everyone, but for my husband and I, we literally moved across the country. We were like, oh, the lifestyle and what we've been doing is no longer setting us up for success. And that's what we learned through the time. And so it's been very painful for me in a lot of ways. My identity and my work is changing a lot. Anita, like you were saying, that so much of your identity and happiness and joy comes from what you contribute to other people and yourself in the world. And so it's been a huge grieving process. And, we're now in Atlanta, Georgia, and building up this whole new foundation of every aspect of our life. So for me, it has been patience that what existed and what we're seeing, that the world's like, okay, great, so now we're all going to do a million things again, okay, because the world's open, so do a million things. No one liked doing a million things. No one likes doing it. And I've been sharing a lot on my Instagram of like, be mindful of your nervous system.
Yeah.
Because we were finally able to unwind, even though we did have all these other stressors, right? But we were able to like unwind, and we were at least in our own space. we were in our own bodies, and now we're back out and we're picking up on what everybody else is throwing out and everybody else's trauma and everybody else. And it's like, no wonder. So I think it's great. Of like, yeah, man, I haven't processed it yet. I'm just like going one step at a time. Just no rush.
No rush. Exactly.
There's those books. I can't remember who wrote it. Maybe it was, I think it was Shonda Rhimes. I think, I can't remember. But there was a book that was written. It was like, this is your year to say yes. Say yes to everything. Say yes to the cocktail party. Say yes to whatever, right? And then I was like, yeah. So I'm going to write the year of no's. No, I'm not going. No, don't ask me. I'm not interested. I'm in my pajamas 24/7. I mean, it was the year of no, right? No. And so to your point, we had a year of no, and now we're going to the year of yes. And how do you assimilate, right? How do you go back to what it was? And I don't think we're going to. I think people who are excited, I think I'm an extrovert, introvert.
Yeah.
Because I love people, and I love speaking to people, and I love being with people. But when I don't want to, I don't force myself. I'm comfortable saying yes when I want to be there, and I'm comfortable now with saying no because I don't want to be there.
Right.
But it takes some little baby steps to get to that place. And like you said, it's about consciousness. You need to be conscious that we went from this way to all the way this way, and we need to really kind of be somewhere in the middle. It's at least here in Los Angeles, it's very different. The world is different. How you go out socially is different. How kids go out socially is different. And my kids have really thrown themselves into music, musicals, sports, and the natural thing of just going to a movie theater. We love, as a family, we used to love, going to movie theaters, and now someone sneezes and it's like,
yeah,
is that okay?
Exactly.
Is that okay? And we have to set the non-feared for our kids and say, it's fine. We're going to go back to the movies. We're going to have a day at the movies. We're going to go out to eat, and we're going to come back home and everything's going to be fine. So, but you have to be, you have to lead with example, right? You're the example to your children. You're the example for your extended family. For example, my mom, who's 82, we have to go at our own pace. We can't force someone to be out of their comfort zone that far out, from being kind of a recluse. It's kind of hard.
Yeah, no, I think you brought up such a good point, Anita, because and Rachel, it is mindfulness that is important. I mean, here in California, the kids don't have to wear masks to school anymore, but one of my kids still chooses to wear it. And I have to say, and I just say, hey, you don't have to if you don't want to. And he's like, no, I want to wear my mask, and I want to, and as a mom, you think about it, it's like, I wonder what's really going on. And so you got to peel that onion and kind of dig into what it is that they're feeling, that they feel that they need to still have their masks. But the point is that it's the mindfulness of knowing where you are and saying, let's take a minute, take a deep breath, and then let's see, because I think one of you ladies said it, I don't want to go back to the way it was either. There has to be something in between. And I guess each woman, family needs to discover what that means for them, and creating that environment of how they want to live now. And for us, it's somewhere in between that 0 and 100. And I just don't know where that is. Is it at 50, or is it at 70, or is it at 40? And maybe, there's seasons, and it changes, right? So,
well, I see that. I love that you said that, because that's a lot how I feel, which is like, going back to this idea of balance as a myth, it's like, well, sometimes, maybe all the kids are at home and it's like, oh, we can go out and do, more things together in a shorter amount of time than maybe we would otherwise, right? Like sports are on hiatus or whatever. And then there might be other weeks where like, holy smokes, like work picked up. So, for the next 2 weeks, like I'm not doing social engagements. And again, that's that idea of, I think that mindfulness that comes in. And I think for me too, was really recognizing like, oh, also like the amount of people I genuinely want to engage with is much smaller than the pool of people that I've been engaging with. And that's not to say that I don't like all of those folks. It's just simply if I'm looking at the calendar and the amount of time that I really have that I could spend out on a walk with Rocco, or I could spend watching The Gilded Age on HBO, or whatever it is, like which I highly recommend, by the way.
Yes.
What are the things that I really want to be doing? What are the things that are actually nurturing me? And so therefore, and it's just the way I choose to live my life of like, what nurtures me so that I can nurture my son, my husband, my creativity. Because otherwise it's not worth it.
Very true. Wow.
No, I totally agree with that. That self-care, right? That self-awareness, that self-care, that time for silence, that time to be with your own thoughts, that time to just be, right? Like the unbearable lightness of being, just being makes you feel good, and not doing, right? Not the doing part. So, yeah.
This is amazing, ladies. I mean, phenomenal women, moms, juggling everything together. So let's have our last final say. So from all the wisdom you gained in the last 2 years, doing it the way you had to do it to juggle it all, and now that the world is opened up or opening up, from the wisdom that you learned from your own experiences, what would be one thing you would share with women out there trying to juggle it all together? What are your words of wisdom?
I'll go ahead and start. Maria Shriver wrote a book, and I think it sums it up, is that women can have it all, but not at the same time.
Mm.
And the reason I think there's so much lived wisdom with that statement, and I firmly believe and agree with her, is that your lives are made up of seasons, right? And when you get married, you change and it's a different season. When you have a baby, it's a different season and different needs need to happen, different priorities. When you're at the top of your career, right, you're at a different season, and those priorities dictate where your time goes. And because time is infinite, you have to realize what your time is going to be, where you're going to put that time. And so for me, I really feel like that resonates with me, and a life as a woman, as a mom, as a wife, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is a strategic advisor to CEOs, that where your priorities may lie for a season, and then it changes. And being able to adapt to that change is what you have to get used to, which is really what the pandemic said, is the pandemic was a season, and now we're going to have to change it. So I feel like that's true.
Well said. I've read this quote that says, "I am woman, I bend, I do not break."
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I love
Rachel?
it. Yeah, similarly, I feel like only recently I've been hearing myself say where I'm like, this is just temporary. And we could do anything for a small amount of time.
That's right.
And I also think that when we do that, there's, I always like to think that there's the positive and negative, or the light and the dark of any situation. And the same thing is true of things that are temporary. Sometimes there's things or seasons, like you were sharing, Anita, right, that are painful. And so it's like we're reminding ourselves it's temporary so that we can get through it. And sometimes it's also that mindfulness of like, this is temporary.
Yeah.
Like that was a thing where, especially even now with still being home with my son daily, and sometimes it's overwhelming. And then I'll go, this is temporary. It's not going to be 9 months old forever. So there's so many things. And so it kind of always just puts me back in my body and brings me back of like, this is not forever. And I think then it does allow us to, it's very simple. That's the wonderful thing about remembering this idea that everything is temporary, because it's something that you get to take with you all of the time. And then it's kind of cool because it's always changing. Like everything is always temporary. So it never really goes out of fashion as far as a mantra. So that's really been helpful for me, though, in all seriousness.
Yeah. That's awesome, Rachel. So yes, Sara, your last words of wisdom, very short to wrap it up.
I would just say, take a moment to take a deep breath, and that's okay. We don't have to be productive at every single moment. Just take a deep breath and really think about what it is that you need to do to help yourself balance at that moment.
That's awesome. Well, ladies, this was a great conversation. I learned a lot from you. I respect you as women in careers, entrepreneurs, moms. I mean, again, like Sara said earlier, you're wearing multiple hats, 12 plus. That's what we named, right, Sara, by this time?
12 plus.
So I'd like to finish it off by a quote I just read this morning, and it says, "You are a mom. You are a superhero, period." That's it. You are a superhero. Cheers to your ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. For more engagement, you can find us at The Avanti Woman on all social and media platforms. Follow us on Instagram, join our community group on Facebook to chat, subscribe to our YouTube for our latest videos. You can rate us 5 stars on Spotify and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for helping us reach even more Avanti women just like you.